What's up guys, Jimmy here, and today I want to give you guys a little rant video about G and why I think the character is actually busted. I've always felt that way. I felt that G is actually completely out of control since day one. I wanted to hold off from making a public video like this because I wasn't really confident in my assessment. You can't really judge a character on day one. And I've always said that, and people making tier lists on day one, it's always hilarious to me personally, but I truly believe G is busted, and I want to point out why that is, and I think we should start with character design. The design of G is actually so messed up, it's basically the embodiment of everything that is wrong with Street Fighter V. G is a character that kind of plays like he's on a tier list of his own when it comes to forcing the character to deal with stuff without any escape options. And this is something I've complained about in the past before with characters like Balrog, for example. Balrog was a good example of a character back then when, especially with turnaround punch being plus on block, that shit was crazy. Balrog is still a character that can force a guessing situation onto his opponents, and there's really not a whole lot you can do to prevent this from happening. But G takes this concept to a whole new level. So what makes G really busted, in my opinion, is his V-trigger. And this is what I mean when I say it's the embodiment of bad design in Street Fighter V. G is a character that can pop V-trigger from full screen away, essentially, and you can't really prevent him from doing so. Let's say G has one bar of EX gauge and V-trigger ready to go. He can do whatever he wants to, and this is important. This is a very important fact. Whenever he feels like doing so, he can do an instant EX low, full screen away. You cannot react to that shit, and then he pops V-trigger. If he hits you, you're gonna lose 50% life and full corner carry into a mix-up situation that will basically kill you. So you have to be holding down back all the way when G has V-trigger, because if you don't do that, you're basically risking the whole game, even though you're full screen away from G. This is the part that really amazes me. There is no solution to this spot. You can start neutral jumping like crazy, but that doesn't solve anything. First of all, you can be hit in the pre-jump frame, so if G does, and this happens all the time when I play against G, if G happens to do the EX low, right before you jump, he will hit you and he will get a grounded hit off of that. So you try to bait it out, but you didn't have the, there is no perfect timing. You have to take a guess, essentially, right? So you can't prevent this from happening. You just have to take this. And let's say you're gonna play a little bit passively. You're gonna be like, okay, let's give this situation to G. He deserved it. Let him pop V-trigger and wait it out, essentially, right? You can't do that against G. And one of the reasons why you can't do that against G is because of his command grab. People like to make fun of G's command grab, but it's actually insane. Not only does it have insane range, and range is really important here because holding down back against G will get you killed because of his command grab. You really can't afford to do that, so you have to be constantly moving. But if you're constantly moving, then he'll hit you with an EX low into V-trigger and you're just dead. And this is what I mean. There's no proper solution. You have to take a guess. And not only one guess, and this is the whole point, right? It wouldn't really be a problem if you guess, there are plenty of characters that have mix-ups like that. Laura, Armika, essentially every character with a command grab is designed to do that, right? Put you in the 50-50 spot. If you guess wrong, you're dead, or at least take a lot of damage. The difference between a character like Laura and Armika and G, for example, is the fact that both Laura and Armika, they kind of have to take they have to take a risk whenever they try to get in. Like any approach that they try to go with, it's risky. You can interrupt it, And it's kind of interesting how people constantly complain about a character like Armika, or at least they used to, and I think they still do. You just don't see Armika that frequently nowadays, but one of the more common complaints about Armika used to be that she's really random. It's random to deal with Armika because her get-in options, it's really annoying to deal with the body splash, for example. If you want to anti-air Armika, and she does the body splash, she will beat you in a lot of cases. And in my case, when I play Ryu, if I do Shoryuken against the body splash, the Shoryuken will whiff and Armika will get a free crush counter. That feels really bad, and I'm definitely on board with how people complain about Armika. It's annoying because when you lose, you feel so stupid about it, right? Because you tried to do the right thing, you tried to anti-air, and it ended up being in a situation, you ended up being in a spot where you lost the game because you tried to anti-air. That doesn't feel good, but at the very least there's a clear defined downside of these strategies. If Armika misses the body splash, if you don't anti-air her when she does the body splash, you get a free punish, a punish that is actually that does a lot of damage. Ryu gets a free solar plexus combo. That's pretty major. And or for example, another example, if she does the whatever it's called, like the flip kick, the charged heart kick move on the ground, that's another read that Armika has to go with. That's not a free get-in option, even though she's plus on block. If you block a fully charged heart kick, that's plus, but you can react to that and you can do something about it. And if she lets go earlier, she's minus, and if she whiffs, you can actually whiff punish as well. So there are clear defined disadvantages to these characters. So not everything might seem a little bit random, but at the same time there are patterns that you can abuse, stuff like that. That's where mind games come into play usually, right? And both Armika and a character like Laura, they have very clearly defined disadvantages, and I don't see that with G, and this is my problem. Like, even if you give G the best V-trigger in the game, you can still balance him out, and this is something I always talk about. It's not a problem giving a character a very, very strong V-trigger and others making the V-triggers of other characters weaker. That's not the problem. The problem is if you give G the best V-trigger in the game and give him good neutral as well. This is something that bothers me. All of the strong characters in Street Fighter V, and there we go again, the embodiment of bad design in Street Fighter V comes from the fact that the strong characters have no disadvantages. Characters like Akuma or Ibuki and G are characters that actually do everything, with G being in a very different spot actually, and this is something I want to talk about as well. Akuma and Ibuki are characters that actually do everything well, but they also have stuff that G does not have, and this is something people constantly say. G doesn't have a free, like an EX reversal, an invincible reversal. He doesn't have a 3-frame attack, so his defense is weak. His defense is weak is the main thing that really bothers me with G. Yes, G is lacking an EX Shoryuken option, and he doesn't have a 3-frame attack, which is a big deal in fact, but he really makes up for that by having such an insane comeback factor with his V-trigger. This is where he still fits into that category of a character that does everything essentially, or at the very least he excels so much in a certain area that it doesn't even matter. And I want to talk about the excuse that G doesn't have an EX reversal, or that he has a weak defense. I'm definitely not on board with that. Street Fighter V is a game that doesn't have good defensive options, period. There is no character that has good defense. Like, have you ever heard about, like, it's kind of funny because every time a new character gets released, one of the things that I think I hear for every character is, oh, the character has weak defense. What does that even mean? Like, I'm very confused about that. What do people actually mean by that? The character has no EX reversal? Is that good defense? Is that really good defense? Does Ryu have good defense? No, he doesn't. No character has good defense in Street Fighter V, and that's the fucking point. People need to understand Street Fighter V is a game where defensive options are extremely lacking. This is why people wanna have more defensive options. This is why we're asking for more defensive options, because there is no character with good defense. Having an EX reversal option doesn't give you good defense. Having a 3-frame normal doesn't automatically make your character awesome at defense. Ryu has a 3-frame move and it's fucking garbage on defense. It's not a move that you actually use a whole lot on defense because of its poor range. For the most part, because of its poor range. And G most certainly doesn't have weaker defense than other characters. I'm not on board with that. And the main thing that I want to point out here is his jab buffers. G probably has the best jab buffer in the entire game. And jab buffers are defensive options. Okay? For the most part, they're defensive options. So when you're being pressured, doing an EX reversal doesn't really help you that much. It's actually, you're just gambling your life away when you do that, right? So when I do that as Ryu, if I'm wrong, I'm gonna lose the game on the spot right there, right? So it's not something you very commonly see. Yes, the player on offense has to think about that option, but if you take a look at pro gameplay, if you take a look at tournament footage, you can clearly see people don't care about EXDP. Because you literally cannot care, you cannot make your offense weak just because someone has an EXDP. You need to force them to use it, and then at some point you can bait it out like once or twice. But for the most part, people will play a very offensively oriented game no matter what. If you have an EXDP or if you don't have one, doesn't matter. People will still go in really hard. So in a real match, especially on high level, this is not really a big factor to consider. The 3-frame normal, that does kind of change a little bit because G has more trouble dealing with certain strings. But once again, and this is something I really want to point out, G has the best jab buffer in the game. That is great defense. So if anything, G probably has above average defense, or at the very least he doesn't struggle more than your typical character in the game. G does not have bad defense at all, and he's probably the only character that can get 40% damage off of a jab buffer. That's really something to consider. Next up, let's talk about anti-air options, and while G doesn't have the best anti-air options, he certainly is not lacking severely in that department either. So G has two main tools, the back fierce and the crouching fierce. And I've looked up the properties for both moves. I was kind of familiar already with both, but I just want to make sure I don't spread any misinformation. The back fierce is amazing because you can actually combo after you land it. It's kind of like landing the back fierce of Akuma. Similar properties. Akuma's actually has way better properties, but it's still good enough for G. It's not extremely slow, it's fast enough for you to actually anti-air with it, and whenever you do get an anti-air with the back fierce, you can follow up with even more damage, and with a level up, stuff like that is guaranteed afterwards. And that's a big deal. That's a major thing that makes G so powerful. If you jump in on G, not only do you get anti-aired, you actually make his neutral game better right afterwards. That's something you actually can't afford to do. And if he has V-Trigger, or if he's in level 3, it's gonna hurt a lot to get hit by a back fierce when you jump in. This is something that G is one of the very few characters that can do that not only gets an anti-air, but he also gets corner carry and massive damage off of an anti-air situation. That's really, really strong. His crouching fierce, on the other hand, this one is really interesting because Street Fighter V, for most moves in the game, especially anti-air moves, have properties that state that they cannot hit when you cross anyone up. So if you take Ryu, for example, if you do a crouching fierce with Ryu, then the hitbox has a flag attached to it that states if your opponent is behind you, the hitbox will not actually hit. This is very important to understand. Ryu's crouching fierce has actually a really good hitbox, but it's unreliable as an anti-air because it can't hit opponents that are behind you. So if your opponent is jumping from a range where he's going to cross up, crouching fierce is useless. It's not going to work. You're going to get a full jump in instead. G does not have this problem, and this is another really cool thing about G. If you do a crouching fierce with G, his crouching fierce actually does not have the can't hit cross up flag. So this is why sometimes you see crazy interactions with G's fears, with G's crouching fears, right? You're jumping from like what is very clearly a cross up, and G is just hitting this move, and you're getting hit from so far away. You're way behind G already, but somehow the crouching fierce is still hitting. That is a good anti-air move. On top of that, you get a free mix-up afterwards, so that's super strong. So now let's get back to how the command grab actually works for G and why it's a really good tool. I've kind of talked about it a little bit earlier because of the range, right? G's command grab has insane range to it, and people like to say that it's a below average command grab because of how slow it is. It's a very slow command grab, but for the most part that does not matter. And this is something where I feel like sometimes when I have a conversation about the command grab, people have a fundamental misunderstanding of how startup works and how reaction time works. There are some people out there apparently who think you can jump out of the command grab on reaction to the animation startup. This is not true. It's simply not true, and if you're telling yourself you can do that, you're lying to yourself. It's humanly not possible to jump out of the command grab of G when you see the startup of it. Because if it was reactable, it would be the worst move in the entire game. But it is not. You have to make a conscious decision before you even see the command grab startup that you will jump. Otherwise, you cannot prevent it from happening. This is a very important factor. This means that the slow startup is irrelevant when G has the knockdown state. On knockdown, when you're next to G, you have to make a decision. Are you going to take the command grab, yes or no? Okay, you can't react to any startup or anything like that. You have to make the decision beforehand, just like you have to make that decision with a 3-frame command grab. It doesn't really matter, just got to do that beforehand. So, how good is the command grab of G? When you actually hit it. And this is the point that makes the command grab so good. G's command grab isn't just a 20% or like a 15% damage command grab and then you're back to the neutral game. It doesn't work like that at all. You can't actually afford to take the throw against G, because taking the throw actually deals the same amount of damage and the same corner carry as if you got hit by a regular attack on the ground. Street Fighter V has this common meme attached to it, just take the throw, which is actually mostly correct. Even though it has meme levels, that is absolutely true, but it is correct. For the most part, taking the throw is simply a better idea because you're back to the neutral game generally, you're not taking a lot of damage, and then you can start winning from there again. Against G, this rule does not apply. And this has a massive effect on how you deal with G in the knockdown state, especially in the knockdown state. You're gonna get hit, G is gonna get free medium punches on your wake up all day long simply because you can't afford to take the throw. Taking the throw and getting hit by a medium punch has the same effect. You're gonna get full corner carry, like G is gonna get full corner carry and massive damage, 40% damage taken from whatever you get hit by. And that is just ridiculous. If he's in V-Trigger mode, it's even worse. Obviously, it's even worse. If he's in level 2 or level 3, it's a big deal as well. But no matter what, it's always a big deal. G always gets a massive advantage from hitting one command throw, and it's not a bad command throw. One thing that you also need to consider is, this is something that some of you might point out, hey, Jimmy, if you just block the first medium punch, and if he goes for a command grab, you can actually interrupt it with a jab. That is true, but once again, we get to the point where you need to do that before, like you need to make a conscious decision beforehand that you will hit an attack after blocking a medium punch. And the thing is, G can just go for another medium punch instead. So if you make the decision that you want to interrupt afterwards, you're gonna get hit by a second attack because you can't react to the command throw. So it turns every blocked medium punch that G does, it turns it into another 50-50 gamble, essentially. And that's difficult to deal with. Sooner or later, you will get hit by a meaty attack from G or a command throw, and you kind of have to pick which one you're going to take, and both deal the same damage. That's a massive problem. So now let's talk a little bit about the neutral game against G, because normally when you're playing a character that has a command throw, you want to try to zone them out a little bit, you want to try to keep your distance, and that somewhat works out against Armika, against Laura, against Zangief, against Alex. All of them play very similar in terms of where you want to stand and how you want to approach. The fireball is usually a strong tool to make them just take a guess on something, like try to get in with a jump. Laura is a prime example of that. Laura players like to jump a lot because they really have no good way to answer Ryu's fireball. If they do their own fireball thing, I don't even know what it's called, but if Laura players, if they mid-screen choose to do their projectile attack, Ryu can punish that on reaction with a Tatsu. Okay, so that's how bad the options are. For characters like Laura, mid-screen, Ryu can handle them very, very well. But on the downside is, once Laura is in, boy, you might die in one sequence, right? But at the very least, you can always say, hey, there must have been a major thing that happened, like Laura getting a jump in because you did a bad fireball or something that caused the situation to happen. Against G, let's compare that to G. How does the G matchup work? I can't throw fireballs because the sphere, is that his V skill? I think it's his V skill, just denies the fireball. On top of that, Ryu is susceptible to crush counters just like against any other character, which makes the fireball option kind of useless. So I can't zone G. I can't really stand outside the footsie range and throw fireballs. That's a major risk to take against G. And on top of that, G has multiple ways to deal with the footsie battle, like the spinning kick special move, for example, will go through fireballs, and if you space it properly, it's even safe on block. It feels really tough to deal with G, even if he is not leveled up. And one hit of G, and this is the point that I want to make here. If you get hit once, he's gonna level up, and once he's in level 2, he has access to all of the combo extensions that he really needs. I think he even has better extensions in level 2 than he does in level 3. So that's a major issue. A character that is so strong with his V-trigger, that is so strong with anti-airing, and that gets so much damage and just oki off of everything essentially, shouldn't have good neutral. There needs to be something that a character like G is missing when you make him so good in certain areas. And I think Capcom is actually recognizing that with Kage. Kage, for example, is a weaker version of Akuma. That's what I've always said. People like to actually make fun of me in my Kage is weak video, right? When I have my first impressions, I immediately notice this is just a weaker version of Akuma. And I think that's actually the right thing to do. You should give characters clear advantages or clear strength and weaknesses. It's really important for character design, and G does not have weaknesses at the moment. G's neutral game is just fine. It's not difficult at all to find your spot to level up. Once you're leveled up, the character is better than average, is actually really good character once he levels up once, and if he doesn't level up at all, he's still doing just fine. He's not lacking in a major area when he's not leveled up. I mean, he's not a great character either, but still, he's not doing too poorly. And I really think Capcom should consider this. If they want to make him, they kind of have to make a decision here. Do you want to give G the best V-trigger in the game and let him get the free 50-50s all day long? You get 3 free 50-50s essentially once you're in V-trigger mode for G. If you want to give a character that's fine, but you have to adjust him somewhere else, and I think the neutral game is just too strong for what he has on offense at the moment. And I think I want to leave it at that. G, in my opinion, is just busted because of all the things that I said. Good anti-air options. He has massive damage. He has free mix-ups in V-Trigger mode. Possibly the best, no, definitely the best V-Trigger in the game. He has the best jab buffers in the game. And you just can't afford to get hit by this character. If you jump in, you die. If you get hit by a command grab, you die. If you get hit by anything, you just die. And even if you manage to do all of the damage in the world, because G isn't, like, let's say you play a perfect game against G, you never let him level up, you're just dominating him on the ground with the right character. Once he has V-Trigger, all of that is erased, essentially, right? You're gonna deal with instant EX lows, full screen. If you get hit by that, you're on your way to death, essentially. The next 50-50 will kill you, and if you block, then you're just two 50-50s away from dying. So I really think this is messed up, and I think we will actually see these results in the future. I was really confused with how the Japanese players are rating G. I think they're catching up to the fact that G is actually pretty good, but nobody is really pointing out that he's busted. Nobody's saying he's busted, and I'm honestly still confused about that. I would love to see a tournament where a G player is just getting all of the ridiculous comebacks in the world because of his broken V-Trigger properties, and have a proper discussion, because I think that would definitely trigger a proper discussion. G players simply don't have the results at the moment to show how good the character is, and maybe that's because I'm wrong, right? Maybe it's because G has something that is very weak about him. But I've never actually seen anyone point out something that I can agree with when it comes to why G is actually a mediocre character. Everyone is just pointing out he has bad defense. I disagree with that flat out. Not having EX Shoryuken or even a 3-frame move isn't that big a deal when you consider his other properties. Bad defense, certainly with the jab buffers, isn't the case. G is not a character that has massive issues on defense. And yeah, I think this is where I want to leave it. And I want to ask you guys, what do you think about G? Do you agree with me on this? Do you think I'm just crazy for pointing out G's broken? Because I do think he's the best character in the game at the moment. We just don't have, like, we haven't seen the results yet to back that up. But I truly think he's the most messed up character by far in the game at the moment, and I would love to know what you guys think about that. And I also want to share one other thing. I don't even think Ryu particularly has a lot of issues against G. I think G clearly wins the matchup against Ryu, but it's not even the worst matchup in the world. It's not like I play G and I'm always super frustrated and that's what led me to make this video. It's not like that at all. Birdie is by far the worst matchup for Ryu, and I never really complained that much about Birdie. Like, Birdie is really strong in Season 4, but I think he doesn't have the same fundamental issues that G does. I think G is actually, the character design is very broken, and that's something I really wanted to point out. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about the character? Do you think he's gonna make some more appearances in top 8s in the Capcom Pro Tour? Because I think this is actually what's gonna happen. The last couple, like NorCal Regionals, or there were some other tournaments where we finally saw G make it because of 81 Strider and because of Smug, right? They're finally getting the results with the character, and I would love to see more of that. I would love to see more discussions around this character, because certainly people are still sleeping on him, even though I've been having issues dealing with G's character design since day one, and I'm really surprised nobody's talking about that. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks a lot for listening to this rant, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care.